Hi everyone, I'm Katie Bray, and I wanted to share with you how I see the coronavirus and what it means for us from a spiritual perspective. I've been getting this question a lot from my clients in particular, and I thought it was important that I just did a video to share my interpretation and how I see things. So some of you are very familiar with my work, which I call energy architecture. When I was teaching my body of work with the Shift Network, you would be familiar with it as your 8th chakra life. But either way, for those of you who are not familiar, I want to give you just a really, really brief introduction, because I want to spend more time on what this video is about and not so much about my background and what my work is about. But just to give you a little bit of context, I'm a lifelong clairvoyant and empath, and I work with individuals, particularly as it relates to their chakra system. So that's what energy architecture is all about. When I work with people, whether it's within groups or as individuals, I see the chakra system of people. I basically see chakra everywhere I look, the whole world. That's just sort of my worldview. That's my lens. And so when I work with people, I look at the stages of development, if you will, that we go through that correspond with our chakra system. So just as a quick example, the root chakra at the base of the spine, most people understand as being the survival chakra. Absolutely true. I'm very aligned with the already existing information out there. But what started coming clear to me when I started my journey doing this work professionally about 13, 14 years ago was that there's a lot more to the story than that. And so I started questioning, well, why is that the survival chakra? And as I was working with clients, I started to get a much fuller picture of the actual energy structures that are within the chakra system. So first chakra is often where a lot of our family of origin energy starts, where it's rooted. It's also the place that houses and stores our ancestral energy. So if you're doing ancestral work, you're doing a lot of work with your root chakra. That doesn't mean that the energy doesn't move up into the ascending chakras. It's a system, so they all do work together. I just think it helps when we can look at where we are within different stages of our development as we're developing our chakras, because it actually helps us map out the spiritual work that we're here to do, or the work that we're here to do in the world. So you might be asking at this point, what in God's name does this have to do with the coronavirus anyway? It actually is related. So for those of you, again, who have been on retreat with me or done one of my courses, you have probably heard me talk about how there is also different stages of development of our humanity, and I see that also as being very chakra-based. I want to stay concise with this as well. So I'll start in like the 40s and 50s, and we'll go from there. We don't need to start from the beginning of time. The 1940s and the 1950s, I see as being the energy very much of the root chakra. So if you remember, that's when World War II ended, and there was this whole process of rebuilding the world, where, there is survival mode and learning how to redevelop and learn, how do we sustain ourselves now? What is this new world like after a world war? So I see the 40s and 50s, and actually a little before that as well, as being very much the root chakra energy. That was the energies of what it was that we were here to work out. So moving into the 60s and 70s, we get into the second chakra, where there is a lot of that, of course, like free love and exploration, a lot of addiction, a lot of compulsive behavior that is very much second chakra, imbalanced, but hey, we're here to work this stuff out. So we're going to see varying degrees of balance and imbalance all along the way. That's just part of the landscape. That's why we came here. Then we move into the 80s and 90s, and we are in the third chakra, where we are in a stronger place, and we are looking to develop our ego selves a little bit more. I mean, I know at least in a lot of the Western world, the 80s in particular was very much a time, we were come out of a recession just after the early 80s. We'd come out of a recession. And here we are thriving again. A lot of things were big. A lot of things were grandiose. There was a lot of ego. An unchecked ego is very much a third chakra experience. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying any of this in judgment. I'm actually a fan of the ego, particularly when we can use it as a tool or an instrument for our higher selves. But still, what we notice in the 80s and into the 90s even, that there was a lot of this, who am I and how can I prove myself, and bigger is better. And honestly, there was quite a bit of gluttony. So then we move into sort of the rest of the 90s. I actually have notes here, so I'm keeping myself on track. We have the rest of the 90s and into the turn of the century. And that really put us around the third and fourth chakra, which again is about like who am I in this world? Who am I going to show myself to be? And then moving into our hearts, where we have the opportunity to discover and explore really, who am I? It's a place where we get to the heart of certain matters more. We can look at this politically as well. There's a lot of different ways that we can look through this sort of sorting process, as I would call it. But in the 90s, later on in the 90s, we had started to calm down a little bit from the bigness that was the 80s, this overbearing, like egomaniacal behavior. And we started to sort of bring it down a few notches again. There was a little bit of a softening because we were really in that heart space energy, or we were making our way there. Then, so here we are moving from the later part of the turn of the century into the tens, or like the 2010s. And this is where we're in our fourth chakra and migrating into our sixth chakra. So the fifth chakra is really a time, and this was also a time where, at least in the United States, like Obama was president. Like him or not, Obama was president. But what that started to do early on in this fifth, sixth chakra time period was he started to bring a different kind of heart, a different kind of softness, which is in some ways why a lot of people didn't like him, and exactly why a lot of people did love him. But he started to reveal to us that we had some choices that we could be making, that he would really exemplify who we would choose to be, which is actually the fifth chakra in my context. The fifth chakra is all about making a conscious choice about who we're going to be. Am I going to follow my heart, my essence of who I am? Or am I going to follow my programming? That's more of that ego, unchecked ego self, the one that we needed to develop. So that's the fifth chakra. And that was something that really came to life, again, just after the turn of the century and into the 2010s. So enter into 2010 and, into now, here we are in 2020, if you're watching this currently. And what we have been processing is the end of the fifth chakra and into the sixth chakra. And this is really important because in this time, again, if part of it being the fifth chakra, we're really in this discernment process of who am I going to be in the world. We're seeing a lot more entrepreneurs. We're seeing a lot more people, whether forced or not, learning how to make businesses of their own and feeling a little bit more strangled in the 9 to 5. Like you notice, at least I have this amplification of that. And to me, that is very much a fifth chakra experience. So then, as we start to migrate out of that, we move into our sixth chakra. And again, I'm going to say in the United States, Trump was elected president. Love him or hate him, that's what happened. And there were some other things that have gone on in the world that were sort of aligned with the U.S. having selected someone like Trump into office. We've seen a lot going on in the U.K. And so I'm very much focused on the Western world with some of these analogies, I know, but I feel like they're very strong. What I have been saying for a while is that it has really been us being in this sixth chakra experience where the sixth chakra is all about our perceptions, and not so much, well, our perceptions based on our beliefs. And I want to say this, beliefs don't start in the sixth chakra. Beliefs start much further down in our energy system and our chakra system, but the result of those beliefs through our sixth chakra is actually what creates our perceptions in the world. And so what we've been seeing a lot of in the world is a lot of this dualistic right and wrong. I feel like more than ever before, where there is this mass perception of separation and this mass perception of the Democrats or Republicans are the right ones, or vice versa, depending on where you land. I'm certainly not wanting to make this political in any way. I feel this is true for all of us, and we all have a very sacred place part that we play in all of this. But the sixth chakra is very much where a dark night of the soul takes place. And it's a dark night of the soul because there's a lot of disillusionment. There's a lot of perceptions that sort of blow up in our face. There's a lot of things that we will perceive that cause us to question, what is life really about? What is this really about? And sometimes there's a sense of being lost. And so we can look at this on sort of a microcosm, macrocosm level. So on the one hand, I think, many of us know what it's like to experience a dark night of the soul. That's a sixth chakra experience for us as well. But what we've been living in and what we've been seeing is that in our current time, we have been dealing with a sixth chakra experience. And that is why it has felt so dark and scary and disillusioning. Okay. And so I want to just coin a couple of things to make sure that you're tracking where I'm going with this. But I don't know about you, but when I was younger, let's say in the 90s, the big conversation was about the indigo children, that the indigo children were being born, or the indigo children were teenagers at that time. I would be considered an indigo child. And those were just the very psychic, very open people who were coming in basically to help be the spiritual leaders of the future. And I know there are many of us out there. Well, this is the sixth chakra. We are, if you're my age, I'm 42, born in 77. If you're around that age anywhere, you are one of the indigos who are here during this indigo time to make a difference, to make a change. Okay. So that sort of idea of the indigos coming back in the 90s is exactly why we were needed and why we are here now. Okay. So there really is, we could go on for days about how to track this way. We have so many different representations of how these different decades essentially are representative of our chakra system. So what I've been saying for a while now, because we have been in such a dark night now for a little while, is that we were making our way into the seventh chakra, where the seventh chakra is really about our connection to source. It's a path of enlightenment. It is an opening. It is the way that we find our deepest connection, not just with source at this point, but our connection with others, our oneness with others. And so what I have been seeing is that the coronavirus is that. And I want to talk definitely more in depth about that. But the first thing that I want to point out for those of you who don't know, I'm sure many of you do, but this is important. Corona in Spanish means crown. And so here we are literally having an experience with something by the name of crown. And we are working through this crown chakra experience together. So I want to highlight some of the ways that that I see this as being true, outside of me having a horrible, literally splitting headache the other day and fever, and I couldn't understand what it was about. And then I got downloaded with the, oh my God, this is actually what I've been talking about, and I hadn't caught it up until that point. So one of the primary truths about the seventh chakra is oneness. So, there are many of us who have been talking about oneness for a very long time. And when we say things like that to someone, let's say, who embodies more of the qualities of the root chakra, where they tend to be more in survival or more traditional, the root chakra of the 40s and 50s is people who tend to be a lot more traditional or really have a lot of beliefs that lean in the traditional sense of the world. It's like we're speaking different languages when we talk about oneness for many people. And you'll note that that's because it's sort of these opposite sides of the spectrum. Not true across the board, but there's definitely a lot of truth there. And so one of the things, if you notice, that the coronavirus has been doing is actually calling us into our oneness. And while it might seem easy to say, yeah, oneness, except we're basically, most of the world is in captivity right now. Many of us can't even leave our homes. We can only go get groceries and come back home. How is that oneness? Well, the oneness is that we all have an impact on someone else, whether we know it or not, i.e., whether we're symptomatic or not, we could be affecting someone. We will have impact on other people if we are not responsible for the totality of the population right now. And so one thing that I always say, if you have ever had spent more than probably 5 minutes with me, you've heard me say this, but I deeply believe that the divine is always in the paradox. And so here we are in this divine moment in the seventh chakra where there's a lot of paradox. We're watching all of these walls crumble because we need each other to get on the same page and to be as one so that together we can move beyond this virus. So all of these walls are crashing down while simultaneously the borders around the varying countries around the world have closed up. But notice that despite these closings of these countries, we have still found a way to understand the oneness, the massiveness of our global family. That, my friends, is a seventh chakra experience on a massive scale. That is the macrocosm. And I find that, it's easy to say, well, what about all of the people who are living in all of this fear right now? There is a lot of fear right now, which I totally understand. What I want to say is please don't throw venom or judgment towards people who are living in a lot of fear right now. Because we are here on the earth plane, we are still in a place that does have dualism. And while some of us participate in that dualism more than others, we are here to experience the full spectrum of our humanity. And so those who are saying that, this isn't true, that there's a lot of conspiracy theories about it, I don't know, that could be true. I'm not honestly focused on that. I'm focused on the fact that what we're going for here is the tipping point. We're going for the tipping point of the people who are willing to be in the oneness. That is what is going to shift all of this forward and move us into a totally different place. So if you feel like you're getting frustrated with people who are either being what you might find as being ignorant or overly fearful, however it is that people are coming across to you that don't feel right, please remember that you have the option of just stepping into that oneness and just observing and seeing that they are also playing an important role of being here with these sort of like earthly laws. While those of us who understand the mechanics of frequency and vibration, that we can be the ones who really hold the oneness together. Because again, it's all about the tipping point, and we need each other to come into that tipping point. So another thing that you could say is, well, isn't it all an illusion anyway? Because illusion is a big piece of the seventh chakra as well. This idea or understanding that, life in reality, air quotes for sure on that one, is the dream. This is the dream. This is the thing that we can sort of manipulate, decide to wake up from. It's not the ultimate reality. This physical plane is not the ultimate reality. I find that to be absolutely true. And if you do too, what I want to say about that is there are people who also understand that to be true, and yet they don't embody that truth. And so therefore that cannot be their default until they do. That we have to embody the frequency of truths like this so that they actually do something for us. We can know things all we want, but until we're actually in that vibrational frequency and truly embodying the truth with a capital T, that's not going to be our default. So it's important that we have compassion, and not in a, kind of way. It's important that we have compassion we're all playing our sacred role in this massive, almost initiation. I would definitely call this an initiation right now that we are going through. This is a massive global initiation. And so there's a few things that are important about that. One is, what does that mean for our future? Where does this mean that we're going? Well, from what I see is that we'll be in this seventh chakra experience for a bit longer. But the truth is that time really does speed up. Energy does speed up. We were actually in the root, we were in the root chakra a lot longer than the 40s and 50s. But again, I want to keep this as concise as possible. Energy does run slower in the root, as many of you know. By the time we get up to the upper chakras, especially the seventh chakra, energy speeds up, everything speeds up. So does time. So I don't see us being in the seventh chakra for another decade. But what does come next after we've spent a little bit more time here is that we're going to be approaching another root chakra time period, which is not bad. It's actually a rebirth. It's literally a rebirth. It's now being reborn together collectively at a higher altitude, so that now we can take all of this new wisdom and we can take this oneness and these new understandings and this enlightened energy, and we can start to create a new world from here. And that's our choice. That is our option. And we need the tipping point of the oneness right now to help us get to that place, to create more of an ideal scenario. I don't know that Earth is ever going to be what we might call perfect, in the idyllic sense. But I think a lot of us know, and a lot of us hold hope and knowing that we can create something a lot better than this. And now's our chance. Now's our chance through holding the space of oneness. Something that has been coming up a lot in my sessions, I'll be wrapping up here shortly, but I have to mention this, is that a lot of people, especially those of us who are empathic or highly sensitive, are feeling so much right now. No matter how much we ground, no matter how much, we do our practices, for some, it's getting the better of us, at least in certain moments. And so what I want to say about that is, it's because we're not just dealing with a normal, I'm empathing this kind of situation. We're actually the ones who are the conduits of this initiation. We're the ones that are holding the frequency of this initiation. Those of us who are aware that there is a higher meaning, whatever that higher meaning is for you, you don't even have to align with what I'm saying. Just align with whatever higher meaning resonates with you, and that will put you in the vibrational frequency of oneness. And it is those of us who are doing that, who are really holding the space for this initiation for the globe, okay? So this isn't a normal empathic overload situation, okay? So if you're finding that a lot of the things that you normally do aren't working for you, that's why. And so what do we do about it? Be really gentle on yourself. And this really goes for everyone. Be gentle on yourself. This is a great time to slow down, to do restorative yoga, to practice pranayama or breathing techniques, to be a little bit more slow and steady, to be a little bit more quiet. If you are someone who prays or meditates, to make sure that you spend even just a moment of that time sending love to the world and sending healing to the world, because that does make a difference. I mean, I hope that if nothing else, we all learn from this, that we do have significance. For anyone who has ever walked around feeling like they aren't important, think about this. You alone, if you were infected, could go out in the world right now and infect a lot of people. So that might not be the most beautiful example, but if you feel like you don't have impact, think about that. We all have impact, and so do your prayers, and so do your good thoughts. And that is really in service of this oneness. So connect however you can, and look for even the smallest ways to be of service to others, to be of service to yourself. I actually believe that part of the pathway, a big piece of the pathway out of this, is that we understand our connectedness and that we take responsibility for it. And that's part of why slowing down and taking care of ourselves becomes paramount, because we understand that because we have that much impact energetically and otherwise, when we take care of ourselves, we've been hearing it for years, but here we are where it matters more than we could have ever grasped as human beings. We take care of ourselves. We keep our space, our environment clean. We keep ourselves quiet when we can. We do our yoga, and then we extend the love and the kindness and the oneness, the time, if that's what's required, if there's donations that you can make, if, whatever it is, it's really important that we stay in that place, because that's what's going to get us out of this. I'm sure that there's going to be some kind of vaccine for this. I do think that there's going to be some time before that happens. And so in the meantime, it's really important that our focus is on oneness and how much there really is no separation between us and anyone else. And so, a great meditation to do is to just sit quietly and just consistently with your breath, repeat inside of yourself, I am one, we are one. I am one, we are one. And just feel into that. See what activates and comes to life for you. And just be present to that. So I hope that this was helpful. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments or send us an email. You can find me at Katy, that's Katy, at livewiththelightson.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know that this might be controversial for some. I know obviously it's going to be stupid for others. I'm totally okay with that, because I know that the people that this resonates with are the people it's supposed to resonate with. It resonates with me. It's something that is really, really supporting me through all of this, to just deeply feel that this is the truth of the situation. And so I hold a lot of hope and I hold a lot of love for the world right now. Whether this is all a bogus conspiracy or not, I see an opportunity for oneness. And I think that's the point in general. So stay healthy, be well, take care of yourself, and remember your oneness.